The reality is we all live in a data-centric world. We're collecting data, putting data together, and we're really looking for that data to change our organizations, to change our businesses. And data gives us the power to do that. Today, I'm going to talk to you about some strategies that I've learned over decades of working in this industry. Data can be your best friend or your worst enemy. And honestly, it goes right back down to some of the basics that we've overlooked perhaps, or just had to get the job done, so we didn't take time to really look at some of these core data basics that enable us to move forward with visualization, dashboards, and things, artificial intelligence, things that we want to use in the future to make our organizations and businesses better. So stay tuned. I'm going to give you a few tips from a business perspective and a strategy perspective of how you can kind of begin to look at the data that you have within your environment, start cleaning up some of that data where it makes sense. So stay tuned. We're going to jump right to this. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have here on the screen real quick. So we have this data here that is an Excel spreadsheet. And Excel, people use it as a database in almost every organization I've ever been in the 40 years that I've worked in this industry. So there is no doubt that you probably have Excel spreadsheets within your environment today that look just like the Excel spreadsheet I have on my screen. Now, there's nothing wrong with this spreadsheet as you look at it. Here, of course, this is all bogus data, but here we're doing some sort of calculation collection. We're creating a graph based on those calculations. We're maybe manually inputting information over here. All of this is good and fine, but there are some core challenges to this data model right here. So we're going to talk about that. The second thing we're going to talk about is a small experiment that I've been doing at home, which is my attics on my top floor. I have attics that kind of surround my top floor bedrooms, and I'm having a hard time keeping them at the right temperature in the summertime. So I'm adding some insulation. So I'm tracking the efficiency of the insulation and the investments that I'm making. And so to do that, I'm capturing temperatures at specific times during the day, and what the wall temperature is, the door temperature, the attic temperature, and then seeing if what I'm doing makes sense. And so I'm collecting this data in a general format, as you can see right here, just a standard format using a Power App, actually. But I could be collecting that data as simple as an email message, or perhaps even just a notepad entry. It doesn't matter how you collect the information. I'm just doing it on my cell phone. But there is a huge difference between the way we're collecting the data here at the top of the screen and at the bottom of the screen to enable visualization, what you see over here. So we're going to talk about that too. So let's jump right into this example since we're there. So let's take a look at this example. So you're collecting this data. Here I have two collection data points, 8:46 and noon. I'm going to copy this data just so we can see this in real time. And I'm just going to push it right into that spreadsheet. Now I just literally did a Control-C, right, and a Control-V into this environment for paste. And here I'm going to say I clicked on the little box there, use the text import wizard. And it's delimited text, kinda. I've got some colons in there and some commas in there. Let's see how it deals with it. So here, I don't have a semicolon, but I have a colon. So I can put that in there, and notice it automatically separates the data here for me. This is great. But notice I have multiple data strings over here. Now this is where it becomes more complicated. In fact, it becomes very difficult. Here we have text in this area. We have numbers, but how do we convert that properly? It's seeing it, and it becomes real ugly real fast. Now, can you collect the data this way? You absolutely can. But what this might require of you is to convert your data if you want to do a visualization. We don't want to do that. So now let's say we want to collect that data in a good format, a better format. Here, we're going to copy this over from here to here. Okay. And this really, when you look at this right here, that's what I'm collecting. Time, outside temp, thermostat temp, wall temp, door temp, attic temp. And notice here I put my times here. So this is what is really called a column-based collection. I'm collecting the data thinking in columns. Remember, columns are right here, up and down. Rows, left to right, columns, up and down. And I'm going to use my import wizard. Now, again, I have delimited text. Notice my delimiter is a period. By the way, period, not the best delimiter. I usually use semicolon, but just in this example for this video, it'll work just fine. So here we have other, we're good to go, right? So we're going to go ahead and notice that it's separated all of my data for me. I can just hit finish and away I go. Now I can take this data just like, let's say I want to see the delta here between these things here. Boom, boom. I can just go straight into charts, look at it, boom, or do whatever I want. Okay? And here I've done this chart here. So when I continue to collect the data in this format, I will just add the next row. For example, I'll do a copy and I'll collect that data. I'll pump it in there. I'll do the same thing with my import wizard. Okay? And I'll put it in there, period. And I'll hit finish and it'll add that data. And then I'll go into this and I'll just add it down here. Boom. And it'll just add another value to it. Okay? So pretty simple. This is the right way to collect data. This is the right way to collect data. As you can see, it becomes very conducive with any visualization that you want to do within your environment. In this example, we're just doing a very simple visualization inside of Excel, but we could be using Power BI. Could be using a whole bunch of other tools. Column-based with rows, with the data, perfect. Looks great. Let's move to the next example. So the next example is this one here. So here I have data. This is wonderful. And I'm really trying to make sure, I'm sorry. Before we jump into that, if you ever have, let's say you're collecting this data here, like this right here, this notepad. Let's say you're collecting an email or you collect it in some other format and it isn't pasting in correctly to your spreadsheet, don't worry about it. Just take that data. Let's say you got an email message with this data. Just copy that data, drop it into a notepad, and then from notepad, drop it in, and it'll work every time. Okay, so back to this. Sorry about that. So here, this is great. They're doing these calculations. You can see these sums. I mean, everything looks the way it's supposed to. We're great, right? And we have all of these graphics that are going along with it. It's wonderful. It's been working for years. Now the challenge is if we want to go to a visualization, because we know, like for example, within Power BI, we could easily capture this data right here, drop it into Power BI, and instead of being static here, we just click on one of those pies and it shows us exactly who it was. I mean, it does a breakdown for us. It's very slick, very easy. But with this format, it's going to be very difficult to capture that, because it's not at the top of the environment. One, for example, we want our headers to be at the top. We want and our data to be underneath that. Now, if you have graphics that you're doing, great, put them at the bottom. Put them at the bottom, because we can take and analyze this data all day long, but if we're importing it into something else, we need the data to be at a place where we can get to it, okay? And embedded in the middle is not that place. So that's one thing. Second thing to learn about this data set is these are calculations here based on data, but sometimes we may say, hey, give me a total of this cell and this cell, okay? And I'm going to get whatever that number is. This is great as well. I mean, it works for this format, but when you put it into a visualization format, this is non-drillable information. The information, what do I mean by non-drillable? The information is there. It's a calculation that occurred within the spreadsheet, but there's no data behind it. It's really just taking two numbers and adding them together. You can do that in visualization tools, but it's not going to give you a lot of the benefit that you would get from, like, for example, on the screen again, the drill down where you could click on 50% and see what's going on within that environment, right? Click on this risk level, boom, and now I can see who my pending, stable, etc. are. In this flat model, I can't see any of that. So Power BI lets me do that, but I have to organize my data properly. So what have we learned here, just to summarize? 1, if you're collecting data or you have existing spreadsheets within your environment and you want to begin to extend your visualization, contact someone who has done it in the past. You can ask questions on my YouTube feed if you like. I can answer some basic stuff, and I do consulting for some companies to help them get through this. But you need to start organizing your data in a manner that's conducive to visualization and your future. If you continue down this road, you'll never be able to move past that. It'll be very, very difficult. There's going to be a time we're going to have to transform that data, so might as well be now, right? So, and the transformation, once it occurs, now it's easy to maintain. The second thing is, when you collect data, make sure you think about the way you collect the data so that it is most conducive with the visualization target that you have in mind. In this example, my visualization target is right here. So I knew that I really needed this to be column-based data, right? Column-based data, as you see here, not row-based data, as you see here. So those are just a couple kind of quick tips on how to make sure that you're getting your data into your environment in the correct way so that you can use it for visualization, AI, and other analytic type of activities in the future.